Oh,
Let's start
we're
off.
live.
Hello, LinkedIn. Hello, Facebook. Starting off as usual with some good beats, getting everyone in the mood.
And now today we're three instead of two. We're three. Oh, this
even
is incredible.
even
We're
more
multiplying.
powerful today.
Yes,
Wow.
absolutely. Welcome, everybody. It's amazing that we're here today on Tuesdays, our Tuesday Lives. We are talking about something incredible, which is how to learn from failure, something that's very relevant, very current in 2020. And today we're joined with a wonderful, vibrant, energetic, and powerhouse of a woman, Epi Mabika. Yes, I'm going to
So
introduce
excited.
our, our lovely guest and our lovely host. So I think I'm in the middle, sandwiched in between. So I'll be your MC. So introducing our lovely guest, Epi Mabika. She's the founder and CEO of Step Up Youth based in the UK. She's an author, speaker, publishing consultant, and book coach, and chairs several boards, including the JMF Leadership Foundation, where she provides leadership capacity building and writing scholarships for young girls' tertiary education abroad. She frequently speaks at the UK Parliament, European Parliament, and United Nations headquarters, and we're so excited to have you, Epi, on our live today.
Epi,
And
can I just also ask you, do you always look this gorgeous? Because, thank you for gracing us with this beauty. Just like you're so radiant on the screen.
and there's a funny story that Janine and Epi will be telling you about how the prep went just before we came on. And so introducing our lovely, lovely host, Janine Bensouda, who needs no introductions. However, I will be introducing her. She is the founder and managing director of Bensouda Consulting, based here in the UAE and expanding now in New York in the US. And she is a leadership expert. Expertise lies in sales, customer experience, organization culture, leadership development in youth and adults. And, she brings over 30 years of experience doing that as a management consultant. And so I would like to now pass on the mic to our lovely host, Janine, and to our guest, Epi.
Thank you, Aisha. And of course, Aisha, you also need no introduction. And yet you are the beautiful director of operations based in Dubai, taking care of Bensouda Consulting, and also my absolute favorite co-host on all of these shows. So thank you, Aisha, for the great introduction. Oh my gosh. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome first of all. Thank you for joining us. We're so excited to be here today. We've got such a funny story to share with you, don't we, Epi? So today's subject is all about learning to fail forward. And, tell me if, like us, this year, 2020, has just been full of surprises, have kind of knocked you off your feet, resulted in some level of disappointment, maybe even tragedy. And we're very sorry if anybody out there has experienced personally any tragedy from this year. Our prayers go out to you. And for those of us who've, with businesses and with school and children and all kinds of circumstances, it's just been rough, right, Epi?
Yep.
And so we're here today to bring you the best of our experience, wisdom, knowledge, learning, reading, and to share some stories and some tangible tips on how you can make sure that 2020 counts and that we leap into 2021 with some clear improvement and really use this as a way to improve ourselves and strengthen. So the funny story to get started was up until literally 30 seconds before going live, Epi was only a black screen. There was no Epi on it.
Yep.
We could not get her visual. We could,
Yep.
no matter what we did. And what were we thinking? We were like, how are we going to do this? We're going live. And what did we finally decide to do, Epi?
We just decided to trust the process. We went in and out, and we just thought the third time this is just going to work out. So
Absolutely. We did. And look what's happened. So before I hand over to you, Epi, just to introduce yourself and get us started, I want to give a shout out to some of the audience who are watching us now. Hi to Sherwin. Hello to Jada. Hi to Muhammad. We got people. Just type in the name of the location you're in, the city, the country, and type in hashtag live or replay also, so we know if you're with us right now. And we are at your service. So please do share stories or share questions you have for us about failure and learning to fail forward. So let's get started. Epi, 2020. How has 2020 been for you in terms of failure, and how do you feel? Like, do you have any stories to share about what you've had to go through and how you've dealt with these situations in 2020?
So yes, thank you so much, Janine. And first of all, thank you so much for this platform as well. Hello to your beautiful audience. And yeah, thank you for giving me an opportunity to share some insights with you. 2020 has been extremely interesting. I'm sure none of us saw it coming since last year, because normally around this time, towards the end of the year, the last quarter, I sort of start making plans for the next year. So obviously this time last year, I was writing down all my goals and dreams and everything. And 2020 had a different plan for all of us. So it has hit people differently. What I hear a lot is that, oh, we're in it together and, you know, all of us are in it. But the truth is, it's hit certain people in different ways. Some have lost their lives, some have lost their loved ones, their jobs, their relationships, their statuses. So it really isn't the same. But for me, it's more about your perception. It's not really what happens to you, but what you choose to do about what's happening that makes the difference, and that determines whether you succeed or fail.
Right.
So it has been very interesting on many fronts. There's so many places I had planned to have traveled to as a speaker, had been booked to be in certain countries, but obviously we're having to pivot and do like what we're doing, going online and still delivering the same messages. It's not the same because you're not in the same room with your audience, interacting with them, and also like feeding off each other's energies, and having also time to come off and do some touring, some excursions and all that in different countries. So that we obviously miss, but we maximize on the opportunities that we've had. So definitely a lot of the plans that I'd had for this year have gone awry, but at the same time, you look at it in a positive light, like what else can I do to still achieve this goal?
Yes, absolutely. You know what it's reminded me of in particular at every moment in time, two concepts. One is the circle of influence that I'm always teaching and discussing this last month a lot of with the students, is that, you know, we this year has introduced a lot of factors that are beyond our control. And therefore, by focusing on what we can control has helped me to deal with disappointment, kind of feeling unhappy and sadness, anxiety. Because, you know, sometimes when there's so many things we can't control, decisions that are dependent on certain institutions coming back into operation, which they're not. People's budgets have been changed. So that can cause a lot of frustration. Or we can say, okay, fine. What are the things I can control? What are the things that are beyond my control? I'm going to have to let those go and focus really on what I can do. And as you mentioned, things that I can pivot in, you know, so for us moving completely from classroom into a virtual world, moving from focusing mainly on adults to also focusing on youth, expanding to support families and who are, you know, and all of this increased youth who are at home and also going through a higher levels of anxiety. We need to be there for them, right? So that was one principle. And the second has been the principle, you know, my principle of think, talk, and behave, and how now has been the time for us to truly translate our values and our belief system into our language and go out and deliver that in terms of actions that are aligned to our belief systems and show who you are. Because this year, more than ever, has really shown people for their true nature, their true characters and values, and particularly leaders. How have leaders shown up for themselves themselves, for their teams, for their communities, for their families? Have they been giving and serving, or have they been demanding? So I really, really agree with you on that. And can you tell us any stories about how you have handled failure and responded, and how maybe some of the ways that you have responded to failure are ways that have allowed you to reap some positive benefits, and turn the situation around?
Absolutely. So about 15 years ago, I was in my first professional trade, which was a dental hygienist and therapist. Absolutely, absolutely loved my job. My patients loved me. At some point, if they came in and there was someone else there to attend to them, they would cancel their appointment if it wasn't me. So it was like we were
Yeah, that popular. Yeah.
The service that I provided. And at the same time, I worked in practices like Harley Street, so I would see celebrities, and it was really something that I enjoyed. I was at the pinnacle of my career, and I got to a point where I was getting slightly frustrated because there was still someone above me that I had to ask for permission to either go traveling, have days off, and do certain things. I had a threshold of how much income I could get. So I wanted to get to a point where I'd had time freedom, location freedom, and money freedom. And so my friend and I decided, okay, why don't we start our own dental practice? We know what we're doing. A lot of our patients like us. It's going to be easy to really build this up. And so we did that.
Wow.
And this happened at the dawn of the recession. No one saw that coming again. So
Yep.
pretty much like what it is with the pandemic. So started our practice, started building up our clientele, but realized that you may be as good as you want to be in your own trade, but if you don't know how business systems operate behind the scenes, you're not going to go anywhere. And none of us had any business acumen at all. So I soon realized that I'd only successfully managed to buy myself a job, which was the very thing that I was trying to run away from. I wanted the location independence, time independence, and money independence. And obviously, the first year you're building it up. And as soon as we started experiencing a little bit of success, that's when the recession hit. And we had to just close shop and just reevaluate. So this is when I then decided to go back to school and study exactly how these business systems operate. So I did my marketing, my HR, my finance and IT, and got to really grips with what business is all about. So if you look at the experience I went through, someone can look and say, "Oh, she failed." You know, she tried to set up her own dental practice and she failed. But the way I looked at it was, I had enough courage to set up a dental practice in the United Kingdom. This is something that you don't wake up and do. It takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of research, but still you need to know how business systems operate. So I was able to get some nuggets from that experience to know that if I'm looking for freedom, I need to do something that ensures my freedom. I don't have to be working in and on my business. I can be working behind the scenes. And at the same time, failure really is our friend. It teaches us. It's the pathway that leads us to success. So if you have enough courage and boldness to get started on something, you will definitely achieve that goal at all costs. Sometimes it means just changing the goalposts, or changing the time frame that you've set for yourself, to say, by this time I want to achieve this. It may not happen the way you need to, and that's why we talk about pivoting. So you change the method, but you never change the goal. So I still kept my goal in front of me. And in terms of, it then opened up the world of publishing and speaking and going to all these places in the United Nations and everything. But if I had stayed and maybe had become successful within the dental practice, I would have still just been there with my own influence and my own success. But I got to a place where I wanted to become significant, where I can be a voice to other people, where I can help other people cultivate their definition of success. So it really helped and opened up the dream that I'd had to get that time, location, and money independence. So I'm really grateful for that experience, and it's made me a better person and who I am today.
Right. Thank you for sharing that story. It's very interesting. And I had started my business up in 2007 as well, just before the recession. I set up Bensouda Consulting. And I at that time I left, I had been working in New York City with what had been my dream job. I was working at Ogilvy and Mather, right in this, like at the headquarters of the world where all the action was happening, working on exciting accounts, and living the dream. And I gave all that up and went, and I would like just bought a house, and I just had my son, and gave everything up and went back to Dubai to set up Bensouda Consulting. And so many people asked me at the time, why would you take such a huge risk? And something similar to what you said, it was because I evaluated everything, and I do have an analytical mind also. So I did make all my Excel sheets with pros and cons and my force field analysis. And for me, what changed everything was my force field analysis, because I said, okay, if all of these things go wrong, which is what we feel in failure, right? We feel, and these are traps that John Maxwell talks about in his book, Sometimes You Win, Sometimes You Learn, is there are 11 traps of failure. And one of them is the fear of self-image, embarrassment, right?
Yes.
What will people think? And I said, okay, so I'm afraid of it. Who's talking? That's ego. When you're afraid of what people will think, that's ego. That's not really your benefit. Because I asked myself, what could be a bigger risk than the risk of not knowing my potential and not trying? Because I will never get that time and opportunity back. So I said, no matter what happens, okay, I lose my job, the whole thing crashes, I go bankrupt. People might laugh. People might say, oh, well, I told you so. Okay, I might feel sorry for myself. I'll have to lick my wounds for some time. But then at least I know I did it. And like you said, you had the courage. No risk could be bigger. So I could never regret that. And as it turned out, managed to survive the recession by doing what? By, again, applying one of the other principles that John Maxwell talks about, which is the reality. So in his 11 principles, one of them is you got to face the reality. So the reality was, hey, girl, I know you were all excited about setting up this company, and same thing for you, right? Okay, you set up your dental clinic, but guess what? The world is going through a global recession, and just nobody's spending money on what you're selling right now. So I had to have another principle, which is humility. So I had to say, okay, fine. I really wanted to do this re-engineering consulting firm, but nobody's paying for it. So should I just have a fit about that and make no money and go bankrupt? Or do I have to completely pivot? So I did pivot and moved into what people were paying money for, which was educating their because people had to reduce the staff. So how do you get fewer staff to do more? Okay, we can help. So changing perspectives, right? So this is where, in a moment of failure, where in one way, looking at it, the company as I set it up failed, right? That couldn't do that anymore. But then in another perspective, by changing our filter and our mindset, we're able to see through the failure into the lesson. And like you said, failure is a part of life, right? The three facts: everybody fails, nobody enjoys it, and we can all learn to fail forward, right? So what advice would you have for people right now for how they can deal with these uncertain times and learn to fail forward?
So it's very important, like you mentioned, Janine, to have a change in perspective and a change in paradigm, to know that you are not a failure. The event failed. Failure is an event and it's not a person. So all those, at times we want to embody what failure is and walk around with that mindset and walk around with that spirit of heaviness, to say, I failed, I'm a failure, there's nothing else that I'm going to manage to, or there's nothing I'm good for on this earth. But then it's to know that you separate yourself from the event. And like you quite rightly said, everyone fails. The trouble is, sometimes I want to come on the scene in my chapter 1 and then compare myself with maybe Aisha, who's in chapter 6. And that it can't work that way. But if we're also to chat with Aisha, would find out that she's failed her way to chapter 6. So
Absolutely.
everybody does fail, not
Yeah.
unique. And
With,
great
mhm.
news is you're going to fail some more. So you might as
Yeah,
well start
absolutely.
befriending failure. And I
Yeah.
always
And
like to put
Epi,
it this way through it.
mhm.
Yes.
Sorry, just before you leave,
Through it.
an important point about fail. I just want to do a
Yes.
visual representation, which is something that people do that you said, right? Is they take fail and they say, "That's me. I'm a failure," and they apply the fail as a label to themselves. And
Yes.
we need to take that label off and remind ourselves that it's an incident, it's a decision that I made that didn't work out. It was a moment in time that didn't work. No reflection of me. I am still the perfectly capable, perfectly strong, perfectly intelligent. All the qualities I have are still there. It's just that
Yes.
incident, and we can learn from it and put it aside and move on. So I just wanted to like really reinforce that point you made. Thank you.
I love that, Janine, and I love that you jumped in to say that. At the same time, remember, like you had the FAIL
Yes,
in Canada.
reminded you of, yeah.
I came up with an acronym. Say F
Yes,
is find another important lesson. That's what all failure means. Just find another important lesson. Find something, and the more lessons you learn, because you're learning to fail forward, the more
yeah,
likely and the more quick you are to get to that place of success. So there's no need for us to personalize success or personalize failure. Um, so I normally like to also give an example or an analogy of three ingredients that we normally find in our kitchen, which is the
yeah,
egg, the carrot, and the coffee bean. We find with an egg, it first goes in before you boil it. It goes in soft and delicate on the inside. Once you boil
yes,
it through water, it comes out really hard. With the carrot, it's the opposite. So it starts off really hard and versatile. Put it through hot water, and it comes out really soft and soggy sometimes. With the coffee bean, once you put it through hot water, it just changes the whole color, consistency, and aroma of the water. So when the adversity or failure or a pandemic situation hits us, the hot water of pandemic, what are we going to be like? Are we going to be like the egg that goes in really delicate and soft and then comes out really hard? I'm not going to try anything else this year. Let's
yeah,
just throw it out 2020. We can't say that. There's still good to extract from this year. So there's no need for us to harden our hearts. And you even find some people say, okay, 2020 is so over. I'm waiting for 1 January 2021. As though there's going to be some automatic change.
a reset button.
Not going to be like that.
Right, right.
So at the same time, are you going to go hard, confident, versatile? And
Yes,
when the boiling water is thrown at you, are you going to come out soft and soggy, like, oh, I'm going to give up, why even bother, let me just lie in bed all day, this life is not worth living? No, you need to be like the coffee bean
yes,
that goes in and takes over the whole situation. I'm pivoting. I'm going to use this year to my advantage. If it means,
yes,
okay, I'm going to refurbish my house, so I'm going to clean my house better, I'm going to start baking, cycling, doing all these things. Do what you've been given time. So do something about it and do something with it. Again, it's a change in perspective. What are we going to do with what's in our hands? And this is what's within our control. So we need to
yeah,
retain that and maximize that. The trouble is sometimes when I remember at the beginning, at the dawn of the pandemic, there was a lot of fear mongering going around. And the idea was that fear is the bigger virus than the coronavirus
yeah,
itself, because there was
absolutely.
just too
Yeah,
much going on. So many conspiracy theories, 5G, all these things, the government is up to this and all that. So initially, it was essential for us to inform ourselves and keep ourselves well up to date with the news, what's going on. But then it just became too much, to a point that it was starting to even affect, for me, like my mental health. I was just thinking, oh my gosh, you start building castles
yeah,
in the air that are not there.
yeah,
So I had to check my environment and the people that were speaking into my life, to
yeah,
say, I will not be entertaining phone calls to do with 5G, all these conspiracy theories, all these fear mongerings. If you want to have an interaction with me, let's talk about normal life.
yeah.
And that really
Protecting
helped, because
your
it created
space.
that,
Yeah,
yeah, it created a space to be able to think and see how I could pivot, even in my business now, bringing my publishing academy online. So if I had stayed within that mindset of something I couldn't control, because even if those theories are true, I can't go around and remove all the 5G masts or
It's
whatever
not
it
in
is
your
that we're talking
circle of
on my
influence, so
yeah.
it's not the
So
most efficient use of time. And I think this is
yes,
where this year is really calling out the leader in all of us, because
yes,
leadership is not for some exclusive group of people who carry a title. We are all leaders, and we do this work
yes,
with youth as well. That you are born a leader, you are born with the capacity to be a leader first of yourself in your circle of influence by making decisions like Epi you just shared, decisions of what thoughts are you going to focus on, what language are you going to use, are you going to speak positive, speak about things you can do, or are you going to spend time speaking about all the things that you can't do and you can't control? Because you can do equal. One of the 16 values that you know in another John Maxwell program that I lead is choice. We have the gift of choice. We can choose the thoughts that we want to maintain, and align the think, talk, behave. We can choose the words. So I remember when I was learning to swim in the ocean as part of my training to do triathlon. And one of the reasons that I decided to do that was so I could train my mind and my body to be stronger, to be able to deal with adversity, and by pushing myself into an area that really scared me. And I was failing and failing at getting into the ocean because I was so scared that I would freeze and I would get palpitations of my heart would beat so fast that I couldn't actually breathe. So when I'd get into the water, it's a vicious cycle, right? Because then you can't breathe. So then you panic. And then when you panic, you can't breathe. And then you're just, I was a mess, right? I was just like flapping around in the water, definitely attracting any sharks or any animals to me for sure. Until until I realized that I needed, and it was my sister who advised me that Janine, and hello to Khadija, hello to Nasreen, hello to Chatni, hello to everybody who's joined us. Please put in where you are listening in from and hashtag live or replay. We're so happy to have you with us. So back to the story, my sister said, Janine, you need to be at one with the ocean. I said, what do you mean?
wow.
She's like, you need to embrace the ocean. And I'm like, I'm trying to avoid the ocean. And then I listened to what I said. I was like, you were trying to, it's like saying, oh, Epi, can I come to your house? But I don't want to come into your house. I'm going to fight your house. But can I come to your house, please? Like, if you're going to come to my house, be nice, walk in nicely, be gentle. Don't be throwing yourself around, right? So I was walking into the ocean, and fighting the ocean. How could I possibly swim in the ocean and glide and go fast if I'm fighting it? So I realized that I had to breathe in and breathe out. And I had to do all this work with bubbles. And that reminded me the other day that it's like failure. So failure is like this ocean that we need to just breathe in and breathe out. So we breathe in, we take the learnings. Okay, failure is going to happen. It's going to happen today. It's going to happen again tomorrow and in the future, because it's a sign of progress. It's a sign that we're growing, we're moving, right? And when we move, failure is that indicator. Okay, maybe not this way. Try to pivot. Okay, try the other way. It's information. It's a part of information. It's a part of our learning. So are we going to fight that information? Oh, what are you doing? That is so unfair. Or are we going to say, thank you for this lesson?
That's it.
And as long as I'm alive and I have the freedom to breathe another day and make another choice, failure has helped me. And so, so this is where, for me, and my advice, or to myself and to my kids and to everyone, is that make failure your friend. Learn to apply the principles of failure, which will help you. And we talk about that a lot in our workshops on sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. And you will find, and look at it, as you said, as a find another important lesson, right? Or another alternative, whatever important lesson. That is such a beautiful acronym that we should all write down, that Epi shared with us today. And also, again, something else you said, Epi said, is remember that failure is an incident, an instance, a circumstance, an event. It is not you. So take the label off of you. You are not a failure. The situation is
Yes,
a
yeah.
failure. So what can we learn,
Yeah.
and let's
And
move forward.
it's also
Epi, you
important to know
sent,
that failure is feedback. Failure is feedback. And they say that feedback is the food of champions. So the more
yeah.
you eat failure, the more you eat it, the more you're likely to win. So yeah.
Absolutely. Epi, you have taught us a lot today. Thank you for sharing so many amazing stories with us and so much wisdom that we can all learn from. I've learned, I'm sure all of our viewers have learned. If you have more questions for Epi, for myself, to send us messages either on LinkedIn or on Instagram. And Epi, what's the best way for people to reach you?
Okay, so they can reach me either on epimabika.com and all social media platforms at Epi Mabika, or stepupyouth.org.uk and all social media platforms for Step Up Youth as well. But I also wanted to encourage our audience just not to give up, because there could be students here that are listening and wondering, okay, so I'm in this pandemic, I don't know where to start, everything's, just come down. Just not to give up, because then there's always opportunities. Either find mentors, find coaches, find peers that are there to be able to speak into your life. And if it's parents out there, don't give up on your children either, or don't force them. If there are certain subjects, like for example science subjects, and they're not very good at that, they are the ones that they fail, try and encourage them more for what they're good at, cultivate their strengths. And then if it means maybe going for extra lessons for sciences, but you'd find that there's always a genius in every child and in every student. So not to force what's not working, but to actually go with the flow of their strengths and to help them out as well. So definitely take risks, take calculated risks, but don't be afraid to fail. Failure should be our friend and not our undertaker as well.
Absolutely. Totally agree with you, Epi. Thank you for that advice. And I wish that failure would be one of the first lessons that we're taught at schools, to release the pressure and the stigma with failure. As because
Yeah.
the earlier we make failure our friend, earlier we can hug our kids and say, you didn't work great. What do we learn from this? You're so good at so many other things. So let's just learn and let's just move on. The earlier we can learn to fail forward. Bika, it's been a pleasure. We definitely want to have you back here. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for being beautiful inside and out. And it's been so amazing collaborating with you. And I look forward to us taking these programs all over the world so we can impact so many millions everywhere. Thank you so much. It's been wonderful. And Aisha, are you coming back to say goodbye? Hey.
Thank you. I've been the silent communicator through the chat. So thank you so much, Epi, for joining us. It's been a pleasure. And see you guys next Tuesday, where we'll be coming on LinkedIn, Facebook live, and we'll see you then.
Bye-bye, everybody. Have a wonderful week.
Bye.